You are watching or listening to Purham and Associates. For more information, go to rpurham.com or follow me on all social media platforms and subscribe at RPURHAM. Thanks. See you over there. Hey, good day to you all. Welcome to Permanent Associates. I'm your host, Randy Purham. Hey, I hope y'all are having a fantastic week so far. Today is I guess you could say, special day. This is the anniversary of the terrorist attacks by Hamas on Israel. The 2-year anniversary for those that don't remember. But and so there's a lot going on, not only in the world but in our country right now. And I got a very special guest with us today to talk about some of that. And we've got none other than a returning guest, of course. We got Michael Letts. He is the founder and president and CEO of InVestUSA, a national grassroots nonprofit organization that is helping hundreds of communities provide thousands of bulletproof vests for their police forces, through educational, public relations, sponsorship, and fundraising programs. As of June 2023, more than 13,520 concealable and active shooter vests have been distributed to police officers throughout the United States and globally as a result of his leadership and passion. The organization's efforts have helped police officers from areas devastated by Hurricane Katrina to nations such as Nicaragua and Mexico. Michael resides in Columbia, South Carolina, excuse me, with his loving wife and partner, Karen. Ladies and gentlemen, introducing some and presenting the others, Mr. Michael Letts. Hey, good morning, sir.
Randy, it's always a privilege. Good morning. It's always a privilege to be with you. We thank you for the opportunity. And yes, there's an awful lot going on in the country. We are still trying to get this ship headed in the right direction. You can feel the movement. The ship is turning. But we haven't got it lined up where it needs to be just yet, Randy.
That's true. That is true. And, the shenanigans that's going on with these protests, the riots, and whatnot. I'm gonna get into that. We're gonna get into that a little bit more later on. But give us an update as to what you've been up to in the last couple of months since you've been back.
Well, I can tell you this, we have been actively seeking to make sure that we did two things that we committed to. That we made sure that we are getting those who did nefarious acts against this country properly held accountable for it. You've seen we're starting to make progress. I'm still not happy, Randy, but at least we got an indictment against Comey, James Comey, with more, I promise, on the way with, Brennan and Clapper and even Obama for that matter. But we're still trying to go from being told that's happening to actually see it happening. And I think that's where the frustration with the American people lie, unfortunately, sometimes. And then, of course, the other thing that we're having to do, Randy, is what we're going to be talking about here, I know at least partly, is how far the left has gone with its bitterness and hatred towards losing power and trying to actually incite insurrection and riots across the country, and how that is just growing, quite frankly, unfortunately. And they're taking further and further steps from initially just standing there with a sign hollering at you to then standing in the streets to try to block your traffic so you're late for work, to then deciding to begin to go to the detention centers, etc., and harass the law enforcement officers there, and then going from harassing to actually causing vandalism starting to break the law. Here's where we're going to break the law, attacking the officers, vandalizing property, to now what we just saw over the weekend in Chicago. They're actually shooting at them.
Yeah.
They are trying to eliminate and kill officers.
Yeah.
That's a sad situation, Randy. It really is.
It is, and I feel really, I feel real bad for the citizens of Chicago, being that I'm from there, and ironically, Broadview is like a pinpoint location. Broadview, Illinois. I went to church in Broadview, Illinois, at Broadview Baptist Church back in the mid '90s, through my high school years. That's where I was going to church
Right.
at. So to see, and I was just back home, a few months ago. So to see, and it was relatively quiet. It was relatively peaceful. So I mean, it was aside from the normal shenanigans that go on in Chicago, but that you get you become desensitized to gang violence. So it's just kind of like, okay, that's normal, So it's but other than that, it's a relatively fine day. but to see it evolve, the way that it has, and for Mayor Brandon Johnson, Governor Pritzker, to push back and say, no, everything's fine. We don't need National Guard here. Although Trendy Aragua is taking over our apartment complexes, there's nothing to see here. We see this is a reminiscence of what happened last year in Aurora, Colorado, when
Correct.
TDA took over an apartment complex, and everybody's like, oh, everything's fine, nothing to see here, keep it moving. And then it's like, yeah, no, this is not okay. And so now you got LA. That's kind of quieted down, and then you got Portland going on at the same time with the same stuff that's going on in Chicago. I want to get your thoughts on where are we heading when you have federal judges blocking the Trump administration from deploying National Guard troops to protect federal property, which is his constitutional duty. And a judge is telling him that he can't do it. This is it's bizarro world that we're in. I want to get your thoughts on that, sir.
Well, you've got two trends that the administration is pursuing. One, they already did this morning, did it successfully, is we just simply, the judge, a federal activist judge, has said no troops in Oregon, no troops in Illinois. And we just basically did what you said. I'm sorry, but the Constitution grants us the ability to federalize National Guard members for national emergencies or to use to deploy with our enemy combatants. We're going to exercise that right, and we're going to do it anyway. Governor Newsom is fit to be tied this morning because of the fact that he feels like he
Oh, did I lose?
we have basically shown him he's not in charge. Yeah. I suddenly saw that the screen was blank. I was wondering what was going on. I could hear you fine. I'm hoping you can see me okay.
Yeah.
But we have that issue. We've already overridden what Governor Newsom was trying to do. And of course, he's promised to appeal it today to go to court. That will happen, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. But basically what we did is we put that federal activist judge in their place saying we don't recognize what you're doing, and we're going to do it anyway because the lives of American citizens are at stake. Now, I will let you know one other thing dealing with this, Randy. The President has discussed this morning going on ahead and invoking the Insurgency Act again and applying that across the country. And here's why, because you mentioned, LA is still simmering. You still see smoke. It's not a roaring fire, but LA is still simmering. Yeah. Portland is a roaring fire. That is like a combat zone. Mm-hmm. Chicago is getting that way. Memphis has already begun to crank out that way, although we've got Guard members there, and we're putting a quell on that one very quickly. We anticipate you're going to see this very shortly in Atlanta and in New York. And, of course, remember they tried D.C. We shut down D.C. very well. Let me point out a little something that your listeners would be interested in that is not known. Fox News is now just picking it up. We talked about everything that was going on in Chicago and how now that we've gone to violence. You remember they boxed in. Here's what happened in Chicago. You had 30 ICE agents headed to the detention center. They were ambushed, basically, by Antifa, who blocked them in. They had 20 cars, as I recall, blocking them in. And then one lady took her SUV and actually rammed the side with the ICE agents in it to try to cause physical harm to the agents. Of course, they put out an immediate distress call, officer in distress, which this is shocking, Randy. This is the first time in American history that a distress call for law enforcement has gone unanswered.
Yeah.
What happened is when the call went out, the Chicago PD officers, as I would do and any other officer would do, immediately dropped what they were doing. If you were in the process of getting a ticket, Randy, it was your lucky day because boom, we're shutting down. We're on the way. Lights flashing, sirens rolling. We're moving.
Yep.
And then as we were moving, the call came out from the assistant or deputy police chief saying, "Stand down. We are not going to be assisting federal agents, ICE, or any federal call for assistance."
Great.
First, like I said, it's first time in history that a law enforcement, I don't care if you're federal, state, local, you're a law enforcement officer.
Yeah.
And we all are, it's a brotherhood, Randy, and we all rely on it. If I get in a tight bond and I issue a call for distress, I expect to see my brothers there as fast as they can get there to help save my life, because you don't do a distress call lightly. It's not like, oh, I forgot my gum back at the office. Got to do a distress call so you can bring my package. It doesn't work that way. I mean, distress calls are extremely sensitive in nature. We know that they only go out for a reason. What happened, by the way, in that incident? Well, the 30 agents had to what I call dismount, get out of their vehicles, form a defensive perimeter around their area with their weapons drawn, and just simply have to hold out until the help could arrive. Fortunately, none of them were injured, but they did shoot the woman assailant. She was injured. Of course, she drove herself to the hospital, so she wasn't injured that bad, but they did return fire. But fortunately, we got them all out of that situation and got them rescued. Now, why am I mentioning all this, Randy? Because that's what mainstream media. Unbeknownst to that, Sunday, which was 2 days ago, we had 3 incidents in Washington, D.C. that I think are worth mentioning. 3 locations that we discovered incendiary and explosive devices. The first one was in a Catholic church that was performing Red Mass. Now, I didn't even know what Red Mass was. I'm not Catholic. But a Red Mass is a special Mass that they have been holding for the last 2 years on October the 7th to recognize anti-Semitism, to remember the victims of the Hamas massacre, and to pray for peace. And they were setting up in the parking lot tents, exhibitors, etc. It's kind of it's a prayer thing, but it's also an opportunity to interact with the community and talk more about the Catholic faith. And they saw a tent that they had not recognized, so the person was very combative. They called law enforcement, who came over, just simply say, "Hey, you have to have a vendor's license. Do you have a license?" And he became combative. So they removed him from the scene. But when they began to investigate his tent, they found incendiary and explosive devices that he had there. The intent was to blow up that church with all of its congregants in it. Now, remember, this same pattern happened with the Mormon church about 3 weeks ago, Randy? That you remember the Michigan church where the person ran through with his pickup, shot, a few people. There were, a couple that died in the fire, a couple that were killed. There were like 10 injured. But remember, we discovered after the fact, when we were investigating the scene, that his pickup truck was laden with 4 IEDs.
Yeah.
And here's what I want your listeners to understand. We're talking about the church in D.C. We're talking about the church in Michigan. IEDs are not made to just give you a sunburn. An IED will blow up a half a block. I mean, it'll take down a whole edifice, blow up. The point is, it's for mass destruction.
Yep.
So had that IEDs in the Mormon church gone off, it would have taken out the whole congregation. There would have been hundreds that would have been immediately eliminated.
Yeah.
Same situation here in D.C. at the Red Mass. Then further south, there was I think it was called St. Constable's Catholic Church. They discovered 4 more incendiary and IED devices. And then what we call the Red Fire Station, which if you've been to DC, to the White House, to the Capitol Complex, it is the station that is behind. It's the closest to be able to respond. They found 4 incendiary and IED devices there. So you can see where this has been headed, Randy. You remember we talked about when we first started the show, I just hollered at you, yelled at you. The temperature, the bitterness from the left was just to call names, and then it got blocking, and it became aggressive. We're to the point now to where we have massive terrorist
Mm-hmm.
being done.
Yep.
If any one of these IEDs had gone off, Randy, we'd be talking about hundreds of people dead. If
Mm-hmm.
all of them had gone off, we'd be talking about thousands of dead.
Yeah,
And
that's
here's
true.
what we have to realize: this rhetoric, this situation, which shocked me about them not responding to a call for distress from law enforcement, we're moving so fast and getting so out of control with this. There's going to be a lot of people hurt if we don't do something to rein it in. And the reason why I stress that, Randy, is because you need to understand how bad the situation is, so that when you see something on TV, you say, "Well, I can't believe they're being rough with those protesters," or they need to just kind of give them some slack. Folks, we're talking about the attack
Mm-hmm.
on the very sovereignty of this country and thousands of its citizens. We cannot stand by idly anymore. We have to be very aggressive and
Mm-hmm.
very harsh to get this thing into place, Randy.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree. I thank you for that update on these churches. I did not hear anything about this whatsoever. It did not.
They want to
Um,
keep that very quiet if they can.
yeah, obviously, because I'm a subscriber to so many news feeds from around the world, and nothing from the United States side at the very least popped up on my radar on that. So I'm very concerned about that. Keenly interested.
They tell me, and I saw it, that Fox
Yep.
ran a very short segment and then it was taken down from
Mm,
Fox. I don't know why.
yeah, because I think just from my military background, talking about IEDs in the United States, that's a very sensitive subject, and
Right.
that would trigger some emotions for some folks that we don't want triggered with that. It's like, wait,
Correct.
you're telling me that we got people making IEDs in the United States? Let me suit up, and it would be a very bad day
Exactly.
for that population of people who think that that's a game to play with. So I'm very curious to dig in that some more later on. Um, you mentioned New York, and so I wanted to get your thoughts on Zoran Mandami. He actually released a statement this morning about October 7th, and I found it to be a little intriguing how he worded things. But I want to get your thoughts on his position on uh, utilizing the citizenry of New York to discipline police officers. I was like, you already want to
Yeah.
ban police. You already want to ban police,
Yeah.
but now you want to use them to. I want to get your thoughts on that, sir.
And you remember I told you I've also been in public office. I served on council for 32 years.
Mm-hmm.
So let me tell you how the process works. And this is exactly, I can call him out because I've been there. I know exactly what he's doing. I don't know why I get flipped on him just a second. But anyway, here's what is going on. When you become in office, the people that surround you are the activists, okay?
Mm.
They're the ones that are politically astute. They're the ones that,
Yeah.
and how do they approach you? Randy, I control 1,000 votes. I mean, I got 1,000 supporters now. Here's what we'd like you to consider.
Mm-hmm.
And so when he wants to put together a citizens panel, I can promise you the first people that want to be on that citizens panel are going to be the activist community, not pro law enforcement, not things along those lines. And then what you usually have as a politician, oh, I don't care. I mean, if you're promising me you're going to help deliver me 1,000 votes, sure, you can have the seat. I'll be glad to nominate you. So you've got a committee now, people who are activists and anti-law enforcement to begin with. You may get one positive, but I doubt even that. The whole committee is
Mm-hmm.
stacked against you. Now, bear this in mind, Randy. I've got a committee now stacked against you that has never held a badge, never probably fired a weapon, doesn't even know which end to use, never been
Mm-hmm.
in trying to prevent injury or to protect citizens. But yet they're going to sit there who they already have a predetermined opinion about you,
Yep.
and they're going to take that opportunity that anything that you do, Randy, you're automatically guilty.
Guilty.
Uh,
Yep.
you grabbed him with the left hand. What difference does it make? No. We have a policy now. You can only use the right hand first, then the left hand if you have to,
Yeah.
And here's what's so sad. It is not just that it's ludicrous, Randy, but these people are intent on destroying our law enforcement.
Mm.
So they look for that. Now they get people that are filming with their iPhone. I saw him use the left hand before the right. And you say, who cares? They do. And they will then take that information and try to get you indicted, even though you were doing your job, try to get you fired. It's bad enough to be in law enforcement now, quite frankly, Randy, with the atmosphere and the temperature and everything that's going on. That just pretty much seals the fate. I mean, nobody's going to want to be an officer if I have to deal with that as well. So it is an overt attempt to finish the mission that Mondani and all, because remember, he was part of defund the police movement.
Mm-hmm.
Their mission was to destroy law enforcement, to ultimately destroy the country from within. This is just part of their policy to continue to do that, Randy.
Yeah, it's crazy to me because I'm looking at New York, and I got some friends up there, and I talk to them over Facebook. They're like, we don't know what's going on. He said, in my heart of hearts, I just hope and pray that this is all just smoke and mirrors, and the people in New York are not stupid enough to vote for this guy. And I'm like, hey, the way the polls are shaking and moving right now, Mayor Eric Adams, he's out of the race, rightfully
Right.
so, in my opinion. But then you got now
I agree.
you boil it down to Madami and Cuomo.
Como.
And it's like you're screwed either way. you might
No, you're
be
exactly
okay
right.
with
And
Cuomo. You might be okay with him, but you're still screwed. And so it's just crazy
the
to me.
problem is you've got your conservatives with Eric, I think it's his first name,
Yep.
the Guardian, who, truthfully, there's just not enough of them to make a victory. There may be enough that could influence, but they're not going to influence. They're going to stick. And I understand. I'm voting Republican. That's all I can do. And I understand their position. But then it makes it tough for Como to make up the difference. You say, well, you like Como? No. But I can tell you this. I like him a whole lot more than Mondani.
Yeah.
I mean, Mondani's the first one at the top of the list has got to go.
Yeah.
And so they have to be smart. But, sometimes personal perceptions get in the way of being smart. And this one very well may end up being Mondani's victory for mayor. And now you're going to have the biggest city as a communist mayor. Unbelievable, Red.
It is, and I'm glad you mentioned that. Is people are getting away of common sense. They're getting in their own way of utilizing their own common sense. And I wanted to touch on that a little bit more, going back to the cities that are acting crazy right now. You got these elected officials, even in Congress. You got these elected officials that are fueling these flames and saying all these things, but there is no accountability towards them. And now, being that you're in the law enforcement domain, is there a law that the Trump administration or even the Attorney General can they enforce to arrest these folks for, say, inciting violence, inciting riots, or even just obstruction of justice that will apply to elected officials? Is there something like that? Because we're not seeing it, and I'm just curious.
There is a what we call the broad umbrella law that you cannot verbalize to incite violence and riot.
Right. Yeah.
But then where the problem is, we've got all these little other umbrellas that people are hiding under. Congress says, okay, yeah, that applies to the residents of the citizenry, but there's an exclusion for what is said as members of Congress. Now, notice it's on the House floor. I don't see these people making their statements on the House floor. I see them, in their districts or, outside the Capitol. Mm-hmm. But they're then arguing, well, you're not really looking at the way this was intended. As a member of Congress, whether I'm on the House floor or whether I'm in the district, it should all apply equally the same, that I'm protected. But then what does it do with the mayors and the others, because they don't have that provision? Right. They then try to get underneath that umbrella as well. Well, just because you're a member of Congress, I'm not a member of Congress, but I'm an elected official, and so I should have more leeway with the First Amendment than anybody else does. Mm. And those have not been tried, Randy. That's the problem. There needs to be arrest and tried. Let's see where the course is. I've been telling people this, and it's I know it's a topic that people don't want to discuss, but we as a country, Randy, need to have the discussion of what exactly is the First Amendment. I can tell you this.
True.
Our forefathers never meant for the First Amendment to be a entirely covering blanket. Why would I say that? You and I have known when we grew up, you don't yell fire in a crowded theater.
Mm-hmm.
And why is that? Because the First Amendment does not allow you to say something that's going to cause bodily injury or harm or physical violence to somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
I yell fire, people are going to panic. They're going to run over each other. People are going to get hurt,
Right.
especially if there's not a fire there. I can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to recognize there are some limitations. And right now, the left is saying, funny, their position used to be years ago that, oh no, the First Amendment doesn't guarantee you the right to yell fire in a theater. Now they're taking the position, oh no, the First Amendment lets me say anything I want to say, whether that I want to do.
Yeah.
But we as a country have to make that determination. What does that really mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it scares me a little bit, Randy, when I make that statement. What does it really mean? Because we have a corrupt judiciary system.
True.
So what do you think these corrupt judges are going to do? Well, half of them are going to say, yeah, I agree. You say anything you want to. It's free speech. Mm-hmm. The other half are going to say, whoa, there's got to be a limitation, because if I say, shoot Randy, and somebody shoots him, am I not part of the problem by telling somebody to do something?
Yep.
Is that, or is that, hey, my free speech?
Right.
And we have got to have this discussion, Randy, across the country. We really do.
We do, and you're absolutely right, because you can't go through the airport or sit on the plane and say, oh, man, that was the bomb.
Yeah.
You're going down. I see that happen.
Exactly.
I see that happen. And that stewardess, she slapped that dude in the face so hard with that pan. I was like, with the tray, I was like, it was like, I was just joking. And she was like, it was like a big thing. And it was like, you cannot, you
don't joke about stuff like that.
Right, yeah. And
just the same position we talked about with the theaters.
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
You don't stand in a theater and joke, fire, fire. Oh, I'm just joking. You don't do that. I mean, we have got to start getting some sensibility to get in this country about what the law actually says.
Yeah.
Which gets back to the point, Randy, I know we're cycling a little bit, but, we're talking about, I mentioned that you were slow on the indictments. I wish we were moving faster. But, sometimes I have to wonder whether we don't need to be moving toward military tribunals for those who have compromised national security, like James Comey, Brennan, etc. Why do I throw that in there? I want people to understand our forefathers recognize this. Whether you realize it or not, they were some pretty smart people. They recognized that the day, God forbid, but the day could come when the judiciary was tainted. But what do you do then? And that's why the Constitution provides. This is not Michael Letts saying so. This is the Constitution provides that, quite frankly, there is the ability for military tribunals. They can be empowered by the Commander-in-Chief, the President of the United States, or, Congress itself. I know we have a president that's willing to do that. We just got to get it done. I think we need to send the message to politicians, to elected officials, and to America that you will be held accountable, and if the judiciary is corrupt, we've got another way to do it, military tribunals. And I think we need to start implementing some of those to show that, look, you're not going to get away with this, because there seems to be an attitude right now, Randy, especially if you're in office, an arrogancy.
Yep.
I can't say anything I want to, and nobody's going to do anything about it.
Yep.
I can't do anything. I can steal whomever I want to. Oh, yeah, you might try to indict me, but, by the time the dust settles, nothing's going to happen to me. And America is frustrated with that mindset, because they're beginning to think maybe there's some truth to that. We have a two-tier justice system.
Yeah, we do.
You are in the right position. You're in the right, have the right money, the right party, the right position. You don't have to be accountable for your actions, and that is not what's going to make this nation survive.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that, and it's interesting that you bring that up about the accountability of elected officials, because you got currently. You're in South Carolina. I'm trying to remember if it's North Carolina. The governor's race and the attorney general race. The one attorney general that was sending text messages to the Speaker of the House or the former Speaker of the House.
That's North Carolina. We've got our own problems in South Carolina. That's North Carolina's race.
So that bombshell broke out yesterday into its entirety. It was kind of like trickling out over the last few days, but it finally came to full bloom yesterday. And I'm thinking to myself, like, this guy is still trying to run. He's saying I'm sorry I said all those things, but I'm still running. I'm not dropping out the race. It's like, dude, you should be like arrested because you're communicating a threat. And it goes back to
That's correct.
my previous question of, like, is there laws in place that, detain or arrest people for these things? And I know there is, but it seemed like it doesn't apply to them, because it's like you're saying you're literally communicating that I want to shoot these people in the head and kill and see their kids die and everything else. It's like, dude, you're communicating a threat. Number one. Number two, you're saying stuff as an elected official to another elected official who's in a superior position. So that's almost running the kid to creating a mutiny, in a sense, in my mind. Anyways,
it is.
So it's like, what
and you see, it ties it. You're right, Randy. It ties it in the world what we just talked about. You see, when you're in that kind of positions, your actions now are a threat to national security. Now, if just a normal citizen says, I want to kill those people, they still should be held accountable.
Right.
But instead of a military tribunal, you probably would only be going through our jurisprudence system that we have now. But when you threaten national security, and when you're in an elected position, you're threatening national security, you're setting precedent, then a military tribunal should be able to step in and issue. And why am I pushing military tribunals? Because, they do the whole process within 60 days, Randy.
Yeah.
Investigate, determine, did you do it? Was it a violation of judicial law? And what does the judicial law say the penalties are?
Yep.
And then implement those penalties.
Exactly.
And there are no appeals. I mean, I know that scares people, but, it's boom. This is it. This is what you did, and this is the price you're going to pay for it.
Yeah.
We need to start shaking that up and getting some of that done to get people to come to their senses. You will be held accountable. We don't have a two-tier justice system.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and that's something that I'm all for as well. I've been saying that for years, though. And people kind of look at me like, "Well, you don't believe in due process." I'm like, actually, I do, and the due process is the fact that they have the right to a speedy trial, and if you
exactly.
So for example, the way I look at it, like, and I give this example all the time. If you are an active shooter, you're actively shooting people and you're killing them and everything else, and the law enforcement comes in and they see this and they just execute you right there on the spot, you got your due process. At the end of the day, I'm not going to try to stop you,
no question,
and all that. No, we're going to eliminate that whole process. We're not going to worry about no appeals. We're not going to say, oh, we're going to determine whether you were guilty or not. No, bro. You were live in action, guilty as charged, and that's it. There should be no, well, let's determine whether or not, they were guilty of this crime. You're actively shooting people. Like, what else do you need? So I'm all for that. And people look at me crazy when I say that stuff, but it's true. And, you see this in other countries. The countries that don't play. You look at the countries that have like zero crime, like Norway, in a sense. Right. That's how they operate. They do not play with their people. They're like, you can faffle if you want to. You ain't got.
I think it comes down, Randy, to what you're implying, what you're saying is we need to start caring more about the American citizens than the criminals.
Yes.
Because what happens and what you were just saying, I got a video of me shooting you. There's a video. It's irrefutable.
Yeah.
But suddenly I get off on appeal because you didn't get that video from me the right way. When you had a search warrant, you didn't mention that you were looking for a video, and you took it anyway. So now I get my conviction thrown out. All that's just be more concerned about the victims and the American citizens than you are about the assailants and the criminals. And we've lost that in this. You get it back.
Yeah, I agree. Mike, give us an update as to what InvestUSA.org is doing. Are you guys participating in helping the law enforcement on the ground currently with the different operations that's going on? Are y'all doing anything like that?
Yes, we are. And here's what I tell people. You say, why are you doing that? Well, if you'll take a look at the church shooting in the Catholic school, you remember, I think it was in Minnesota or Wyoming, somewhere along those lines. You look at that initial video. You had an active shooter there, you remember? I think he shot, I don't know how many before he killed himself.
Yeah.
When the call came out, this is like at 8 something in the morning, When the call came out, Officers rushed. You've got it on video. They're jumping out of their vehicles. They're rushing in. They don't have active shooter vests. They're rushing in knowing there's an active shooter in the building. Now, they didn't know he'd already committed suicide. So they know that when I get in here and I confront him, I'm at a disadvantage. I may be the one that ended up going home in a body bag, not him.
Yeah.
That is the key why we have to make sure these officers are properly protected. So we're doing that now. We're making sure that, especially in these high-profile areas, especially with ICE and others, that they have the necessary equipment. It's the least we can do, Randy. They're putting their lives on the line to make sure you and I are protected. Least we can do is make sure they get home safely to their families.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And once again, excuse me, once again, I, on behalf of the American people, thank you and your organization for what it is that you're doing out there, because it is very important. And I encourage the audience today to donate. Go to the website, donate, contribute, write checks, cut checks, fly the checks in, however y'all do it out there, folks. But support this organization and help them get more resources out into the communities, because that's what's needed right now is more resources. Everybody likes to point to the federal government to help with these things, but this is a bottom up approach. This is we start in the communities, and then we elevate up to the federal government to assist where we're lacking. And so
Right.
I once again, like I said, I thank you for that. So, Mike, tell people how they can follow you, support you, sir.
They go to our website. That's InVestUSA.org. It's a charity.org. They can see everything that we're doing. They can follow the vests that are being given out. They can follow what's happening in politics across the country and how it's affecting their safety and law enforcement's ability to help make sure that they're secure. So thank you so much, Randy, for what you're doing. Thank you for getting the truth out. Never has there been a more important time than there is today to get that done. God bless you. It's always a privilege to be with you, Randy, and God bless America.
Thank you. God bless you too, sir. And see you soon, and be safe out there, and come back anytime. I'll talk to you soon.
Look forward to it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Letts with InvestUSA.org. Hey, folks, real talk. Go to InvestUSA.org and check out their website. Very, very laid out as to what's going on around the country, how you can get involved locally, at the local level, county level, state level, all that. Go there, check that out, and support that. And folks, like I was saying at the top of the hour, today is a mark of a very sentimental day for many people, especially across the Jewish community, and even in the I guess you say the Palestinian community and whatnot. Both sides of that house. There's a lot going on. A lot of emotions are flying really high. I yesterday was out and about here in Austin, and you saw both sides doing things, having like little vigils and having little ceremonies and get-togethers and stuff like that. And so just be cognizant of your actions, number one, and be cognizant and pay attention to your surroundings as you move about, because people are crazy, and you gotta keep your head on a swivel. So with that being said, folks, I'm gonna jump up out of here. Y'all be safe, and we'll catch you all maybe later on the week. Not sure, but either way, be safe. God bless. Ciao, ciao. I hope you enjoyed today's program. You can follow, like, share, subscribe on Spotify, Substack, Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, and your news. And also, you can download Let the Truth Be Told app on your favorite streaming platforms, such as Fire Stick, Apple TV, and Roku. Take care. God bless.